That's right. It is Formula One Friday. The gang is back together. Finally, we had a little bit of technical difficulties for our Friday After Dark episode that was supposed to air last weekend. But, hindsight being 2020, it was probably for the best because there was definitely some timing off with some, how would you, selectables? I guess we can say. I guess I can say selectables. But it's been good. It's been a couple weeks. Clay, how are we doing over there in the booming metropolis that is Market Heights / Pekin?
Wonderful. We're doing great. It's beautiful. Spring's finally here. Nice out. Wonderful Friday.
How are we feeling about Baby Bulls going into the playoffs against the Miami Heat tonight?
I saw something about the Heat having like a fist fight on their team bus or something after they lost Wednesday.
So the rumor was that Jimmy Butler, who is also not playing tonight, he is out. Yeah. I believe, correct? I do believe so. He is out. So apparently on the bus, him and Tyler Hero, I almost said Hansborough.
No,
yeah, he's out.
Not in the league.
Not Hansborough. Him and Tyler Hero got into it on the bus. Something about Jimmy Butler said 8 for 28 or something of that nature, to the point where Tyler Hero took a swing at him, and then he said 8 for 29. Yeah. I sent it to my other group chat. I said, if this is true, absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, that's how you win that fight right there. Just keep stats on the guy.
And, the thing is,
that dysfunction is actually happening, I like the Bulls' chances.
Well, I like the Bulls' chances just with Jimmy Butler not playing. I mean, how could you not like it without Jimmy? Absolutely. I mean, that's got to be. I mean, we're golden. I think we're golden. Somehow the Heat are still favored, though. Somehow the Heat are still favored, but we shall see. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Japan, the Japan recap. We saw a Red Bull domination of 1 and 2, Ferrari 3 and 4, but we did see some good midfield pack passing that happened here. And I really think that this was one of the better races. Even if you looked at the 1-2 finish by Red Bull, Max had to come back through traffic this time. He had to retake the leads. It definitely gave us a little bit of a yo-yo effect. Unfortunately, Danny Ricciardo goes out first lap with Alex Albon, and that kind of set the tone for the race there.
Yeah, I know they didn't make it very far at all. I want to say it was to turn 1 when they had contact, and he was pulled off the road by turn 3. So, not the bounce back Danny was looking for sure. He's that dude's got to be on borrowed time at this point.
I would think so, right? I mean, I don't think that he has I don't think he has beat Yuki once.
I don't think so.
I think Yuki has taken it over.
I don't think he's even out-qualified him.
That's what I mean. I don't think that he has done anything. And we all know that, Danny Ricciardo is Horny's golden boy. I mean, we've known that. There's definitely a soft spot for Daniel Ricciardo and the Red Bull team. But I think his time's done. And, we're going to get into a little bit later. Actually, let's just talk about it right now. So let's talk about Daniel Ricciardo right now. After this, another poor performance, which could be only calculated by just an absolute terrible start to the year. Where he, to your point, I don't think he's out-qualified Yuki. He definitely has not outraced him. And this guy was supposedly going to be taking over from Checo, which we can get into Checo, that whole thing a little bit later. Does he even deserve to lose his seat at this point? But I think at this point, Danny Ricciardo needs to lose his seat to Liam Lawson, because we saw that at the end of last year. Liam Lawson raced well. I mean, really, really good. And I would beg to say that he'd probably be racing better than Daniel Ricciardo right now. So how long does Horty and Little Red Bull stick with Danny Ricciardo? How many more races do you give him?
I would say I can't see him making it past mid-season. F1
unless there's a significant improvement.
Yeah, I mean, unless he just finds lightning in a bottle, I can't see him making it past mid-season. When they take their summer holiday, I think he might be house shopping or something, because I mean, it's not making sense at this point. You've got a young dude who showed good when he got his chance to get up. I know everybody saw it on the live feed. It turned into a meme the last 2 weeks of, him standing there looking at the video of himself crashing and Lawson in the background, like licking his chops. And I think it's time. I hate to say it. There's not a more fun dude to hear on talk about F1 but you got to do it on the track.
And that's why they're also talking about, him just going back to his brand ambassador role, right? Just go back to that, do it, because if we've seen nothing else, we've seen just a plethora of talent at the lower ranks that are just itching to get into F1, to where I do believe it's even Mercedes or is even considering their top prospect of actually bringing him up and not signing another big name to the Mercedes team, because they don't want the same thing to happen. Because for those of you that don't know out there that are a little bit newer to F1, kind of like I am, Max Verstappen was brought up through Mercedes, and Toto wouldn't give him a seat. And therefore,
they regret that. They regret that.
So there's a lot of pressure now on Toto is, do we go out and get a big name for Mercedes, or do we bring up the young kid? I'm going to figure out this guy's. But I think that we can agree that there's just a lot of talent in these lower Formula 2, Formula 3, even Formula 4. There's a lot of talent that's just waiting.
And especially when you have a guy like Ricciardo, who, it's not like this man hasn't had chances. He's been, the baby bull. He's been on the big team, left to go to Renault at the time. He's had chances. He's been the number one driver on different teams. So, it's a sport where when your time comes, they move you on. And like I said, I would be surprised if he comes back from Holiday with a seat. I would say it would be foolish if Red Bull doesn't do it, then F1 themselves need to do it. There shouldn't be a race week where we don't hear from that guy. That would be like the most fun, like paddock report ever, is Danny Rick putting his nose in everybody's business. He is just a likable guy, but he's just.
Yeah, I mean, move on, bro. You had your time. And I do believe it's Andrea Kimi Antonelli is the driver that is itching for the seat that they don't want to get. They definitely don't want to lose him. And the same thing as Oscar Piastri, right? Oscar Piastri did not come up with McLaren. I do believe it was Alpine, if I'm not mistaken, that had him in their junior program, spent all of the money to develop him. And then they came out, and I do believe they made an announcement, something that we're looking forward to Oscar driving for us next year. And Oscar's like, hold on, bro. I never agreed to that. So it's very, very tough.
When they had a little Twitter beef about it.
Yeah, when you got these F2 teams and these teams that are spending all of this money for driver development, and then the drivers are just like, nah, we're going with someone else. And for a team like Alpine, maybe not so much Mercedes, but Alpine, Williams, Haas, those guys, I mean, you develop the driver. I mean, I feel like those are just kind of where the drivers go to die a little bit, poor K-Mag.
Or they start, and when they show a little bit of life, they get plucked up right away.
And then they come back.
But right. I mean, if you do too long there, it's like, all right, you stayed at, Williams or Haas too long, then that's as good as you're getting.
That's it, buddy. You got to strike while the iron's hot. That's for damn sure.
It's only a step, either on the way up or down. It's not a place to stop.
Speaking of Mercedes, they had some interesting strategies that we saw in Japan. Lewis Hamilton was on the radio asking the team if he should let George go by. Now, it's a weird day when a 7-time world champion is asking, do you want me to go ahead and just let my teammate by? Because obviously he's faster than I am. We talked about this a little bit last week in our pre-show about, I think that they were just on different strategies. Whatever those strategies were, obviously didn't work. You did hear Lewis Hamilton later in the race saying, we need to change the strategy. And Mercedes at that point, yes, we're just waiting for a window. So there's definitely something going on there. But, we talked about this a little bit earlier as far as Lewis being a kind of a lame duck driver for Mercedes. And, even, which we're going to talk about China, but even looking at that, it just doesn't look like Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton are on the same page whatsoever.
I think this year is the first time for a very long time that he has been the number 2 driver on a team.
Well,
And
technically, he's still his number one, but George is just straight up beating him.
right. And getting the better, well, allegedly the better strategies and stuff like that. But it almost sounded like it caught your ear when he said that. You want me just to let him go by? Almost like, whatever, let's get this race over with. I think, yeah, I think there's definitely some, even if it's unspoken tension going on with him half out the door, and they're not giving him much love like they used to, not like they have for the last 8-9 seasons.
Which, I mean, I can't blame him as well, because when we look at that, you chose to leave us, which I think that was Mercedes' own doing by not listening to Lewis Hamilton when he was talking about the car wasn't working. But you're leaving us, so what are we doing for you now? I don't know. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he had a moment there. Yeah, it seems like a mess over there.
It is. Well, speaking of mess, great lead in. The Sauber kick team. What a mess. They did get their pit stop down to 4 seconds this time. Hey, 4 seconds.
Nailed
We're
it.
Almost another
Nailed
shave
it.
it in half again. We're going to get right there. Joe Guanyu has to retire due to gearbox problems. I mean, Sauber's just down bad, man. They're just down bad after Japan. Yeah, they're just down bad. I don't see. I just don't understand it. Right? We got all of this money in F1, and we got these teams that literally just can't compete. And there's supposedly it's a salary cap now, like to supposedly be able to let them kind of get like, what are we doing here? You got people that are clamoring to get into F1 with money. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? How is this team still functioning?
Yeah, you're like trying to strike a nerve on me here, because I'm going to bring up the Cadillac Andretti stuff.
Absolutely.
And they tell them they can't be competitive. And between Williams, Sauber, well, just those two. I mean, right now, Alpine, those 3 teams right there, they're not competitive. Williams had to sit a driver because they didn't have enough parts. I mean, albeit a chassis, which is the better part of a full car, but they didn't have enough parts to race. But you're telling a team that's willing to put one of the biggest names in racing and one of the bigger automotive names, even if it's just North America, still one of the bigger automotive names on a car, and you're telling them you don't think they can compete. It's crazy. But
it's terrible.
It's F1. It's all. Yeah. I think some of the bigger teams like having some teams they can punch around, though, right? I mean, if you're Red Bull, you don't need a competitive team in there.
Well, speaking of Red Bull, you have 2 teams. And you're so dominant with one team, but the other team is barely ever in any type of running. So you're telling me that you have all of this technology over here that makes this the fastest car, but yet you have another sub team, which they do communicate that you're just comfortable with them fighting anywhere from 10th to 15th place. So you're telling me that is an actively competitive team in Formula One, the Red Bull, the mini Red Bulls? No.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not sharing a ton of information, because you can't be, like I said, one is steady in first, second place, and the other one's having a good day if they score points. So
exactly. So like, exactly. You don't want that team to compete. I mean, it's just the writing's on the wall. The same with all of them, right? I mean, because they all have pretty much baby teams. Who is it? Haas runs the Ferrari engine, right? Who is the Haas runs Ferrari? Alpine runs Mercedes, I believe, right? Who runs Mercedes?
So Williams has a Mercedes in it.
Williams has
Haas
Mercedes,
and Sauber both run Ferrari engines in them.
Oh, I think to your point, we can do a lot better. F1, you have come a long way, and the amount of interest that's blowing up in Northern America is absolutely crazy. The amount of intensity, just passion, the outside of the glitz and the glamour that you see on the television with all of the Hollywood stars walking out, there's a lot of people that are really, and they're stealing from NASCAR. I mean, there's no doubt about it. NASCAR's numbers dwindle. F1's on the rise. Like, you have this ability. Let's just get 20. Leave it on 20 teams. I think that is plenty. I don't think you need 21, 22 teams. I don't think you need that many cars out there. I think 20 has worked for so long. Let's get rid of the shit teams Maybe we even use like European soccer, whereas like there's like a mini league now. You have F1 main, and then you have like F1-2. And if you're not in the top 10, you get relegated down to the F1-2. And then the people that were the top 10 from there get pushed up, or, 5 teams. I think 5 would probably be better. The top 15 teams. Let's do that, because I tell you right now, you have the people to support it. Right now you do. But if you continue to put out a shit product, and let me be clear, I don't think the F1's completely shit, but I mean, let's be honest. It's either Red Bull, Ferrari, or McLaren. It's really just Red Bull or Ferrari this year. I mean, it really is. Mercedes sucks.
Yeah, I think there's room for other teams, but what if you just didn't guarantee both drivers a seat on the starting grid? I'm sorry, not a seat, a spot on the starting grid. Like, okay, let's say we have 22 teams, but there's only 20 cars racing today. So you better get some cars up there near the front to make sure, if your number 2 driver has a bad day, he might not make the starting grid. That would drive competition.
Does he start from the garage, or is he just not run?
You're not running.
Well,
you don't want to get to the NASCAR 43 cars on a lap. It's just,
Well, that's why I was talking about qualifying. Sometimes at qualifying, it does get pretty jammed up. Being able to, get everybody out there, and the impeding, which we did see a little bit of that in China today. I think that would be a bigger issue. To your point, once the track's actually going, I don't think it's that big of a deal, because they're spread out enough. The leaders are going to pull away, the other are going to fall to the back, and then you'll have like what we've seen here in Japan, from like 7 to 11, 7 to 12, or 8 to 12, with some really good racing, because they're all mediocre. So it was really nice to watch some good mediocre racing, and I think that's what it is. But who wasn't mediocre was Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda actually had an absolutely amazing race in Japan, and he is putting together a really, really good season. And there is some chatter for him to take over the Red Bull seat. Now, let's talk about Yuki for a second first, because I do have some comments on what Checo had in this race as well. But Yuki's looked absolutely great. We've seen before in some of the races, he does get a little immature. He does, say some things that he's a
little excited.
I like that passion. I really do. I like the passion. But with that being said, I mean, if you're going to go to Little Rebel, isn't there not an expectation that you're eventually going to get a shot at the big boy?
I think the drivers take it that way. Absolutely. If, when they look at the teams, they, Max is number 1. That would, between the 2 teams, Checo's number 2. I think Yuki feels he's the number 3 driver throughout the Red Bull system now. If they decide to move away from Checo, I think he feels it's his turn. I mean, he's been on, I think this is his 4th season as a baby bull. So I think he's got that feeling of, look, I've shown, give me the faster car and watch what I can do.
Exactly. And, I think, we've talked about this before, which, again, we're going to talk about Checo here in a second, whether or not they move on. Carlos Sainz, might potentially being out of the seat next year, which is wild to me.
But where did he finish this week?
3rd. He was ahead of Charles.
Where did his team?
That's what you're getting at. Okay. Yes, he did beat Charles Leclerc. He definitely did. Where's Japan? Yeah.
They were 3 and 4.
Yeah, P3. Again. P3, yeah.
Yeah. But he was like 6 seconds ahead of him. He has been on the podium every race this year, and he's going to be without a seat. That's crazy.
It is crazy to me. I don't
or
see
driving for a team that it's going to feel like it's a death sentence.
Who would that be? Let's play this out for just a quick second. Who would that be? Are the Haas boys under contract?
I believe they are, but F1 will break a contract. They've all got buyout clauses. That's not unheard of to break a contract for F1.
Well, let's talk about this first. All right. So that whole thing to me is just wild. But Ferrari is going to Ferrari. And if you watched it long enough, it wasn't a matter of how are they going to mess it up. It's when are they going to mess it up. And they've done it here with this. We said that from the beginning with this Lewis Hamilton signing. But Checo, I was very impressed with Checo. Finally, I can finally say Japan race, I was impressed with Checo. He had his elbows out. He didn't cower in the corner when it came time to blow past Lewis Hamilton. He blew past George Russell. He looked very, very sharp in Japan. And I will say this, he's doing his job, as you've always said. They don't need him to compete with Max, even though that's what we would like to all see. They need him to finish second. And he has done that for the most part outside of, I think, Australia, which he didn't get on a podium there. But I was very impressed with his P2 finish here and the fact that I really enjoyed his driving style. If he continues to drive like what we saw in Japan, then he deserves to keep the seat, in my opinion. He's done everything that they've asked him. He's got second in the Constructors' Cup with the driver's side. What more do you want out of him?
No, I think he does what he's like. I've said it a million times. He does his job. I think you're right. You did seem a little more elbows out this week, which I don't know. Maybe that's what we want out of him, just to because let's face it, he's the only Red Bull driver that they challenge. It's not so much that he doesn't drive well. He's just the one closer to the pack. But he did show you're going to, I can defend and I will. And maybe he feels like he's driving for his lap too. That might be part of it.
Oh, I'm sure that apparently there was a little bet that happened. And I wish I could have brought it up before and actually found it. But there was a bet between him and his engineer about not only qualifying or something else. And Checo made the comment afterwards. I do know this comment and I remember this perfectly. He said, you now see what motivates me. Let's get it done the rest of the year. So, hey, hats off there, buddy. Did you happen to watch the Ferrari movie yet?
No, I did not. I know you texted me about it last week.
The only reason there's a line in there. There's a line in there where Enzo Ferrari, that's the main guy, I think so. Talking to one of his drivers, and he's like, "You're coming in the corner. There's two of you. One of you has to make the decision." It froze, so I didn't get to see what she said or looked at. But one of you has to make the decision. Who's going to be the one that lifts off the throttle? Let me tell you, it's not going to be the Ferrari driver. And that's what I saw out of Checo this week. Beforehand, any other time, he's like, outside of Mexico, I will say that, outside of Mexico, he put it all on the line and wrecked out in turn one, whatever. That's what I want to see. I want to see you flexing your muscles. Nah. I'm in the Red Bull car. This is my seat. You're going to have to come get it from me. And if he continues this, which what we saw, again, we're going to talk about this just a second in China, I think that he's going to be very secure. Let's be honest. He's going to be the lower tier. It's not like he's going to command $100 million a year. But I guess neither is Yuki. But I think it's very, very important. When I was looking over the starting grid, just the drivers from different countries, making sure that you have everything represented. And he brings a big market into F1. So regardless, I think he stays in. But hopefully, if he continues to drive like this, I think we can both agree, right, that he deserves to keep the seat. Which I think you actually thought that beforehand, though, didn't you?
I
was the anti-Checo guy.
I've always been the bit of a Checo fan. So.
Which I have his material.
I think he's a good driver.
He's mid. We'll see though. What I saw in Japan was not mid. That was not mid. So
I'm just saying, he would be the number one driver on most teams.
What?
Yeah.
Little Red Bull, Haas, Williams, Alpine.
McLaren, I think he's better than Lando.
Lando?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we're gonna have to see how it fit. We're gonna have to see how it fills out. But as I'm looking over this leaderboard once again here, I can't help but notice something that just continues to stick out at me. Because down at the bottom, there's these two names, Alpine and Renault. 15 and 16, and that's because we had 3 do not finishes and Logan Sargent once again spun himself out. So realistically, of everyone that raced and didn't wreck, once again, Ocon, Gasly, both finished in last place. Alpine has got to be having one of the worst starts in their team history. What's going on? What's going on with Alpine? What's
There's
going
just
on?
no nice way to say it. It's just awful.
It is awful. Who's their
They
team
tried to
principal?
make a big
Bruno,
change,
right?
and it's gone backwards.
Bruno. They
Yeah.
fired the guy last year in the middle of the season, right? With like 4 races to go.
Yeah. And then they also did a restructuring after 2 races this year. I think it was a little more up. I don't think it was necessarily people who dealing with the day to day. I think more of the business side people, but they're struggling to get any traction, and it shows.
Do they only
Or
hire
less.
French people?
Well, no, it just seems that way right now. No,
Well, I was just saying
Danny
maybe they
Ricciardo
need to
go for him.
maybe
so.
they need to take a page out of Ferraris and like, hey, you know what? We're not having a Ferrari team principal anymore or an Italian team principal. We're going to go with who we think can actually win. Might be a valid point. Maybe hire the best guy, regardless of where they come from.
Right, best guy.
What a world that would be, huh? Woo!
It sounds like a good plan to me.
Well, I did see a little bit of the selling rumors, which I know that we kind of talked about a little bit in but I find it, obviously it's just a rumor, but I find it very hard to believe that there's no truth to it all when there's specifics that are coming out. And that being the specific of whoever bought the Alpine team would have to continue to use Renault engines and powertrains through the 2029 season so they could ensure that all of the engineers kept their jobs. That would be the only way that they would sell it. I find it hard to believe that we get that specific into a sale with absolutely no chatter of it.
Yeah, the thing that to me, when you shared it with me, the thing that really got me was the part about using the engines, because Renault, it was for a long time the Renault factory team, so that would make sense that they're like, no, we're still gonna cover that, so we got to meet our factory team obligations. So
I'm still under this.
I think it's going to be where there's smoke, there's fire.
I think so. And the way that this is going, I mean, yeah. Again, this team can compete, but Cadillac can't. When I first got into F1, you educated me obviously a lot, as you continue to do. But I just found it was absolutely fucking wild that the teams didn't run their own engines. Like,
yeah,
McLaren doesn't run a McLaren engine.
It's crazy.
What? I mean, I get Red Bull because
Red Bull either.
Well, Red Bull's not a car manufacturer, though. I mean, I understand that.
Right.
Ferrari runs a Ferrari engine. Awesome. Mercedes-Benz runs a Mercedes-Benz engine. Awesome. Alfa Romeo should run an Alfa Romeo engine. And that's how you can't tell me that there's not 20 car makers that want to do this. You can't tell me that if you went to Ford right now and said, well, Ford's going in Red Bull, but if you went to Ford and said, hey, we want you in F1, we want you to develop a team to have a powertrain engine, they wouldn't jump all over it. I mean, same with the other automakers, and can we get a Rolls Royce one out there? I mean, ride around in style.
I'm not sure. My understanding is as Audi's getting in, what you're going to get is a phase out of the Honda engines, and Audi's going to, I believe that Audi is actually going to take over the manufacturing of those. Honda, I'm sorry, I'm confusing the two. Honda is Red Bull. Red Bull is going to be Red Bull Engine Works.
Yeah, so Red Bull is going to Ford, and then Honda is moving to Aston Martin. Honda's going to Aston Martin in 2026. So once again, Aston Martin, you are
a car manufacturer who's not making their own car.
Run your engine. And what I just don't get it. Why would you not develop your own engine? Because like to what you were saying, as far as like Ferrari, right? Yeah, Ferrari does the powertrain to Haas, but Ferrari doesn't give Haas the keys and how to unlock it. Why would they?
No. Yeah,
it makes no sense.
Really, the Mercedes engine balloons is similar.
It makes no sense.
Because it's a business, and they don't have to pay for all that that R&D money. Is what gets them, is they don't have to pay all that.
But Aston Martin and McLaren, you already are an auto manufacturer. You already have all of the overhead. You already have all of the engineers. And you're telling me in $1 billion
I don't know if
sport?
that's right.
What do you mean?
They don't have somebody who already knows how to start from scratch, research and develop a 6-cylinder hybrid electric race engine. I don't think they do have that. I think that's why. These aren't, our engines.
I'm not frozen. I'm not frozen. That's just my face. Give me a break. Come on. Come on. Come on.
I'm just telling you.
But Ford does. Cadillac does, but Aston Martin can't.
Well, I'm pretty sure if you read into the Ford stuff, what you're going to find out is Ford is buying to that engine. Ford's not producing any parts.
You broke up
at least as they get back into it. That it's a naming rights. I said, I believe if you look into it, Ford isn't actually building engines. Ford is buying some naming rights and has offered some engineering support, but they're not going to full blown, we build F1 race engines.
For 2026, Red Bull and sister team Red Bull will switch from Honda engines to power units developed by Red Bull Powertrains, built at Red Bull's Milton Keynes campus with input from partner Ford. Okay. So is Red Bull just making their own engine?
Red Bull Powertrain will be formerly Honda. They're buying out the Honda Motorworks, the Honda's F1 Motorworks.
Well, the Honda F1, Honda's going to Aston Martin, though. So they're not completely bought out.
Yeah. No, they bought out the engine they developed for them.
Well, okay.
It's a business.
No, I understand that. But I mean, the engine that they're using with Honda was going to run out 2025 anyway. So to me, it looks more like they just didn't renew the contract.
Everybody's done in right. It's all new.
2026 is all new. Yeah, it's all new. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, Renault needs to figure this shit out. To me, like, what you were saying as far as not being able to develop your own engines, I still don't buy it. I mean, give me a break. You still have an auto manufacturing company. You still have engineers that develop engines and ways to extract power out of there's plenty other people that you can bring in. You could poach. You could, get from other areas to help you develop your own engine. And I think that should be a requirement of F1 is that you have to run your own power.
I agree.
No more of this sharing shit.
I think that would make it so much more fun.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing stock about a stock car.
Absolutely agree.
We'll see what happens there, those. So we talked a little bit about Checo, and I think we both agree that doesn't really. One of the signings that got done, which when it got done, it was a little bit surprising, but we talked about it as a deal that had to get done, was Fernando Alonso upping his contract with Aston Martin through 2026. I think absolutely great move by Aston Martin here. Fernando Alonso continues to perform at a high level. I mean, he single-handedly carried that Aston Martin team the entire year last year. Yeah. And my God, Lance Stroll is a heavy bag this year as well. What a great deal by Aston Martin. I don't care what if he got paid $100 million, he would deserve the entire $100 million. Because let me tell you, Daddy Stroll, ain't nobody going out there to watch Lance. No.
He's got to drive 2 cars basically. He's got points for 2 cars.
Not only is he driving 2 cars, he's basically carrying the Aston Martin flag. I mean, he talked about being able to work and develop the younger drivers as well. Like, come on, having a guy like Fernando Alonso on your team that's been racing for 20 years. Wow.
Yeah, I believe though we also heard a little bit of a rumor that he might have put some feelers out towards Red Bull to see about Checo's seat.
I heard that as well.
Maybe Lewis in before they took anybody else's money. They gave the old, "Are we going to hold hands for a minute?" And they got told no.
I heard that as well. I mean, like you said, from Red Bull's perspective, why would you ever bring in Lewis Hamilton against Max? I mean, I don't think they'd be close anyway. But with that being said, like, I don't know. I mean, Lewis is becoming a great backseat driver, though. I will say that. Like, I mean, he's basically rolling over and like, hey, whatever. I'm groovy, man. I'm just, woo, I'm just here so I
he would
won't
be
get
absolutely
fined.
wonderful on a team with a young up and coming driver, kind of what you referred to with Alonso. Like, who wouldn't want to be the number 2 to him? But not on a team with established drivers that they want to be the one, because
Well,
you can
Red
only
Bull's
have
Max
one
Verstappen are
number
bust.
one
I mean, we
driver,
all know that, and he needs to feel that way.
which they should be.
Oh, of
They should
course.
be.
I mean,
They'd be
we
fools
haven't
not to
seen
be.
driving like this in quite some time. But with that being said, so Lewis Hamilton going over to the Ferrari. Let's go off on this tangent for just 1 second, because we did talk a little bit about the driver seats that are going to be on rotation. Who's the number 1 driver over there? Not necessarily on paper. Who comes out at the end of that year next year as the number 1 driver on Ferrari?
Hamilton.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Leclerc. I just,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. There's something about Lewis anymore. And no, it's not because he's black. There's just something.
I didn't think it was.
There's just something about him. He seems like a really
I-
nice guy. He seems almost too nice. It's like when somebody's like super, super nice all of the time, and when you hear him on the radio or you think he's always complimenting people, like when you're that nice, I feel like it's all a show. I feel like deep down inside you are actually the devil, but you just don't want people to know it. Like he's just too nice. There's just no way.
I think he is absolutely Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of guy. I think that is his personality. He's soft spoken. He's nice. And then when he gets in a car, I'll cut you. I really do. I think he's that guy. And I don't think we
He
see
ain't cutting anybody in that
because
Mercedes this year. I'll
he's
tell
out
you
the
that.
door.
Yeah,
No,
he ain't
he's out
cutting
the
anybody
door.
in that.
He ain't worried about it. I do. I think he will. I think he will be the number 1 performer at Ferrari next year. I think he's a better driver still, even as an older man. What is he, 34?
Work to do here. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's got some work here to do. But as we wrap it up here with Japan in the rotating seats, obviously we have to ask this question, because as I pointed out on the last show, I was looking up contracts, and Lance Stroll's contract is what we call ongoing. To where you brought up the great thing. Well, that's just his yearly allowance. I can't disagree here. I thought he had a good showing in Japan. I know that you didn't agree. I know that there was some weird stuff with his pit stops, but he was able. I mean, he dropped back to 19th at one point. He was able to come all the way back up. What did he finish? 11th? What did he finish?
Oh, I'm sorry.
12th.
He finished. Where'd he go?
Finished 12th.
Yeah.
Finished 12th. Started 16th. So got up 4 places. It looked like he was on one of those Lewis Hamilton type plans that nobody had any fucking idea what they were doing. Like I said, I think, or did he take damage? I think he actually took damage.
Run until the car blows up, and then we should pit.
Yeah, I think he took some damage on that initial wreck, and he had to go in very, very early to pit. I think that's what it was. Don't quote me on it, or quote me on it. I don't care. Yeah. Does he deserve a seat at Aston Martin?
Whatever.
Nobody really cares about Aston Martin. That's what I'm talking about.
Does he deserve
this is what I'm talking about. Is he ever going to be in contention?
He doesn't deserve it. He's just getting it.
He had a decent season last year. Where did he finish in constructor points?
What compared to his teammate? That's where I'm going right now.
Well, we can't. I can tell you that right there. I know who is the better there. Where do I find the constructor?
Actually, if you go by driver's points, he's at 10 and his teammate's at 8. So, sure, he has almost triple his points this year, but he's 2 spots behind him. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's not that. I mean, so Fernando was 4th last year, and Lance was 10th. I mean, as the number 2 Aston Martin, is there anything other that you? I mean, obviously you want him up here with Fernando, I'm assuming, but I mean, who did he lose to in drivers last year? He lost to both Ferraris, both Mercedes. I mean, I don't know. Mercedes kind of turned on. It's a tough thing to say, right? Because like I said, his teammate blew him out. Yes, Fernando 206 points to Lance's 74. I mean, that's just a big gap. But on the same token, I can look at 575 points for Max Verstappen and 285 for Sergio Perez. That's a bigger gap.
Mm-hmm.
So I could do the same thing with Mercedes. 234 for Lewis Hamilton to 175 of Georgie boy. It's just one of those things where I look at it and I looking back at last year's races, I think he had a couple do not finishes. I want to see. He needs to put out more. He needs to put out some more power. He needs to put out that he actually deserves this seat, that he is not daddy's boy, even though everybody knows that that's the reason we got the seat. And you know what? Good for you guys. Your dad owns the F1 team. You should get a shot to drive it. I mean,
sure.
What? Don't get me wrong. If my dad owned the F1 team, I'm taking the seat. I'm not gonna be like, no, Dad, Carlos is better than me. I'm gonna chill.
I think the part that is always frustrating, it's always we kind of say Ferrari's gonna Ferrari, they find a way. It's kind of that. It's like if there's gonna be a driver, wrong place, wrong time, it's him. It's just he's that, like, you could see like there's nothing competitive happening on the track right now. Yellow flag or two, pull up. It's Lance in the wall by himself with nobody pushing him. It just feels that way with him a lot.
But can you drive the car back?
That's probably, and his daddy owns a team, so yeah. No, I'm in the wall.
His dad did say last year that he has to perform just like anybody else. But again, I'm gonna say, he finished 10th. He got those points. Fernando Alonso, obviously, 20 years experience, multiple championships, obviously a better driver, right? So what is Lance Stroll learning off of Fernando Alonso? Lance Stroll, if you should be leached onto him, right? At his hip. Why are you taking this turn? Where am I missing the apex here? Where can I, let off over here, coast break? What do you think? Like, I don't know if those conversations are happening. I know they're not happening in most garages at F1, but I think this one, especially since your father owns the team, you could probably have that discussion, right?
Yeah, if Will Buxton's listening, he can go ahead and give us a paddock report on how the Aston Martin team communicates for us, since he's got access.
One of these times, my friend, we are going to do this podcast after we've been in the paddocks and down there witnessing it firsthand what's going on. One of these times.
We will have some wonderful questions to ask people.
Oh, we're not going to be able to, we're not asking questions. we're just there having a cocktail and enjoying ourselves. Yeah. No. We're not there on official.
That's even better. Never mind.
This isn't a media pass. No. This is straight up fanhood. So we'll see what happens. Well, let's move on to Chinese. We got the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai. First time since 2019. We have 2 DRS zones, 16 turns, 1, 2, 3 corkscrew, 56 laps, 5.45 kilometers or 3.38 miles. Qualifying for a sprint race is complete. I know that Clay did the same as I did, and we forgot to set our fantasy lineups in this stupid-ass league that we're playing. Danny, if you're listening, the league is stupid. Stupid. Don't like it. Never liked it. Absolutely stupid.
Bueno.
But with that being said, we're down a driver. I did have 2 drivers get in there. We had a little bit of rain. I'll tell you, the first qualifier had like my entire team out. The first one. First, I'm locked in with Logan Sargent still. Obviously, that was not supposed to happen. I mean, that would have been a drop swap. Yuki, what are we doing? We just talked you up. And you come in 19th in qualifying. Now, I will
Not
say
good.
this: there's rain going out there, so that did affect this qualifying times. And some of the people got out were able to get a couple laps in, where some didn't. So take this qualifying right here with a grain of salt, because I'll tell you why. Because when we got down to the sprint qualifier, you're going to see exactly why. But yes, Yuki, Logan, and of course both Alpines. Well, actually, both Williams, both Alpines, and Yuki were first out on the first one. Then followed up by your boy Lance Stroll, Danny Ricciardo. So I guess this is the first time Danny Ricciardo has out qualified Yuki. Congratulations, Daniel. Nico, Kevin, Georgie boy in 11th.
Although, does the sprint quality count?
Does what?
Do you want to give him credit for just outperforming? I mean, it's only the sprint quality. It's not the race quality.
I'm just trying to give him a carrot here, man. Just trying to dangle a carrot, trying to lift up the
okay.
spirits.
All right, let's yeah.
But this is when you can start to figure out that there was issues with qualifying. George Russell at 11th, Zhou Guanyu in 10th, Valerie Bottas in 9th, the Kick Sabers 9th and 10th. Okay, so there's your first indication that something was happening. Follow Oscar in 8th, Charles in 7th, Checo in 6th, Carlos Sainz in 5th, Maxi Boy in 4th, Fernando in 3rd, Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, and Lando Norris takes the pole in the sprint with a very controversial. He had his lap time disqualified, and then it was given back. Now, the replays that I saw only showed the lap before where all 4 tires go. Were you able to see the replay that they were talking about in regards to, they gave him his time back, which gave him pole. Now, obviously, I was excited because I have Lewis Hamilton. So I was like, oh, okay, great. Louis got the pole. And then they're like, oh, wait, he's getting his time back. Did you see the lap? I did not see it. I couldn't find it. I don't.
No.
So we're just taking everyone's word for it.
No, I was at work. Yeah, I was at work and then got home and started talking to you about it. So
you sent me the thing. What the way that you were talking, it sounded like you were watching it.
I was watching it on my phone. I was on lunch break watching qualification.
Okay, so don't act like you couldn't have seen it. All right, don't give me that. I was slaving away at work, couldn't look at it, couldn't see it, had no ability to know what was going on. When that's obviously false.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
I had to get back to work.
Work. Anyway, so rain comes in. We now have the sprint qualifier. Do we know what the rain forecast is for tomorrow or tonight? Actually, it's tonight our time, 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock tonight. I don't have Shanghai on my weather app.
Don't worry, I have got it.
Damn it.
Damn it. Jeez. Did she spill the beer?
Carrie does not like the Shanghai weather.
Right now, right now.
We got rain.
All right. They're gonna have rain, so then that'll be fun tonight.
Yeah, it's gonna be 80s. Well, what time is it right now there? We're not going to Cancun.
I do not know what time it is. Though. It's like tomorrow already.
Wait, that's Singapore, Shanghai. Right? Shanghai. Where?
Yeah. No, Shanghai.
Shanghai. Where Indiana Jones was filmed. It is 5. They're 12 hours. Exactly 12 hours. So let's look at the weather.
Ahead of us?
Yep. It is 5:39 a.m. It is 65 degrees. We have no rain. No rain. We're good. No rain. Oh, we got rain. Never mind. We got rain. But wait, that's no, that's the next night. Nah, we're good. Whatever. It is what it is. The beautiful thing about Formula One is they still race in the rain. I do not, Jeff. I do not have a personal bartender like Clay to be able to bring in beverages. As a matter of fact, I'm out. Shout out to the Boathouse Moscow Mules, but yeah, I'm out. I don't have a bartender like Clay does. He's definitely got it locked up. So, looking like Shanghai, China is going to be a clean race here. Obviously, we got the sprint race that's going off at 10 o'clock tonight. With that being said, the sprint grid is locked up. How many laps does it take Max Verstappen to take over? That's going to be the question, as Clay just, pretty much said, screw you. We are out of here. We're going to still talk. We're going to push on. I'm saying that Max Verstappen takes 5 laps, maybe 6 laps to take this over. We shall see. We shall see. Hopefully the rain stays away and everything goes smoothly over there in Shanghai. I don't know if Clay's going to be coming back or not. We'll kind of sit here and relax. We'll take some questions from the crowd. If you have any questions about any of the F1 stuff going on, go ahead and throw it out there. I do need another beverage. If Jeff, if you want to stop by, maybe some high noons, that'd be great. Are you texting from the bathroom? I don't think so. He could lose the sprint race. You just never know about that. But then we have the regular qualifying. Let's see what the timeline is here. Looks like Clay has lost internet. I'll tell you, he probably has Spectrum. So we have the sprint race tonight, 11 o'clock Eastern time. Then after that, at 3 o'clock in the morning, we have qualifying. And then this looks like 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning on the 21st. So obviously that is going to be one that we are going to look at. Hamilton is starting in. This is the sprint. This is just the sprint, though. Lewis Hamilton starting in second. Thank you, Ian. I really appreciate you jumping in, buddy. We got to get in and see you again. See you guys in over there. Hamilton starting second in the sprint race. So, but he did not look good. He did not look good. He got a little lucky there. So we'll see what happens. Shout out to Jeff and Ian for jumping in on the F1 Friday. We got to get in there to see those guys. If you haven't been over there, Sear and C, wide open tonight for reservations. That is in the JW Marriott at Bonnet Creek. If you go in, ask for Jeff or Ian, and they will take amazing care of you. Make sure that you tip your bartenders and your servers while you're dining in this establishment. I guarantee it, you will leave full, juicy, and very, very happy after staying there. So shout out to you guys. I appreciate you. That's going to wrap it up. We were wrapping it up anyway after the China. Again, it looks like we're going to have a sprint race that is free of the rain. There is some rain moving into the forecast, so hopefully we don't get a wet race, but that could very well be a possibility. We might even see the wets come out on the racetrack instead of the intermediates. That is going to change the dynamic of this race completely, as we saw in sprint qualifying. When the rain came down, those that had the clean track, the good track, and the properly temped tires put in the best times, a la Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton were the ones that had those good tires under the right temperatures, the right tracks. Everybody else struggled being able to keep all 4 tires on the racetrack with the intermediates. We shall see if it's an intermediate, if it's a wet, or God willing, let's get some C-Softs on there and let's have a great race in Shanghai. Until then, we'll be back on the Uninformed Fan, the regular podcast at Wednesday at 11 o'clock, where we break down all the week's action, the Gap Wedge Wednesday boys, following immediately at 12 o'clock on Wednesday as well. Until then, everybody have a great night. And if you're driving along this weekend, please, for the love of God, stay out of the left-hand lane.